There were in Theo's experience 5 kinds of cold. There was the wind cold, which Theo barely felt. It was fussy and loud and turned your cheeks as red as if you've been slapped, but it couldn't kill you even if it tried.
Snow cold, which plucked at your arms and chapped your lips, but brought red rewards. It was Theo's favourite weather. The snow was soft and good for making snowballs.
There was ice cold, which might take the skin off your palm if you let it, but probably wouldn't if you were careful. Ice cold smelt sharp and knowing. It often came with the blue skies and was good for skating. Theo had respected the ice cold.
Then there was hard cold, which was when the ice got deeper until at the end of the month, you couldn't remember if the summer had ever really existed. Hard could be cruel. Birds died in mid-flight. It was the kind of cold that you booted and kicked your way through.
And there was blind cold. Blind cold smelled of metal and granite. It took all the sense out of your brain and blew the snow into your eyes until they were glued shut, and you had to rub spit into them before you could even blink. Blind cold was 40 degrees below zero. This was the kind of cold that you didn't sit down to think of unless you wanted to be found dead in the same place in May or June.
The baby was found wrapped for warmth in the musical score of a Beethoven symphony. It had drifted almost a mile from the ship and was the last to be rescued.
The man who lifted it into the rescue boat was a fellow passenger and a scholar. It is a scholar's job to notice things. He noticed that it was a girl with hair the colour of lightning and the smile of a shy person.
Think of nighttime with a speaking voice, or think how moonlight might talk, or think of ink, if ink had vocal cords. Give those things a narrow, aristocratic face with hooked eyebrows and long arms and legs, and that is what the baby saw as she was lifted out of her cello case and up into safety.
His name was Charles Maxim, and he determined, as he held her in his large hands at arm's length, as he would a leaky flower pot, that he would keep her.
He tipped up his boots, checking them for scorpions. All the books he'd read had been very urgent on the matter of scorpions. Fred's fingers were clumsier than usual. His body was quivering with nerves.
Ruin looked different in the sunrise. It looked more alive. There were places where vines covered the half-fallen remnants of walls along the far end of the square. Places, too, where the vines had been hacked back, and he could see the marks on the stone where it had been cut on the parent rock.
Fred walked slowly through the open square, staring upwards. The canopy over him then was intricately constructed, woven from the branches of the trees that had sprouted among the stones and nestled against the city walls. And from a network of vines it was a green tablecloth for a giant laid out atop the trees.
There were holes in the green scattered everywhere, where the sun burst through in bright light, and one vast gap, just above the statues where the stones shone yellow. Directly under it a single tree stood, burnt of leaves, perhaps by the sun, Fred thought, or a very small forest fire.
Vita waited until the sun had fully set before she scattered the birdseed on the inside windowsill. The day birds had all gone to roost, and on pigeons came to peck at it.
She sat next to it and waited and waited. She was almost asleep when there was a flurry of wings and bright eyes. A crow landed on her windowsill and began to devour the seed. The bird had a tiny roll of paper tied to its foot.
The bird flapped round and round her room, with Vita in gentle, urgent pursuit.
The note read, "Come to the entrance of Carnage Hall at 11:20 p.m. Don't even be a minute late. Eat this note."
Vita looked at the note, which had suffered somewhat from its proximity to the bird's rear end, and decided not to eat it. She flushed it down the lavatory instead.
Absolute darkness does strange things to time. Every step Vita took was the same as the previous one. It became like a dream, a nightmare, edging in the silence through the dark.
Had she not heard Arcady's breath beside her, the sound of Silk's feet, the brushing of Samuel's coat sleeve against the wall, she would have doubted she was moving forward at all.
The only other sounds were the dripping of water and an echoing, scratching sound from the tunnel ahead of them.
Vita clenched her fist and prayed it was not a rat, and then on second thought prayed it was.
He looked out over Paris. The lights flickering on made it look unfamiliar and alive. He had been born in Paris, at least he supposed he had, and knew, as all Parisians do, that it was the greatest place on earth. Yet he had never really looked at it before now, its streets twisted and round.
Churches and great hotels and tiny cafes, and through it all, the great river Seine, turning midnight blue as the summer evening fell.
Beneath his feet, the orchestra struck up, and the opera began vibrating through his shoes and all the way into his lungs.
The music made him feel reckless. In the dark, he climbed out onto the parapet and stood right at the edge.
The cello they bought was small, but still too large to play comfortably in her bedroom. Charles unstuck the skylight in the attic, and on the days on which it did not rain,
Sophie climbed onto the roof and played her cello up among the leaf mould and the pigeons.
When the music went right, it drained all the itch and fret from the world and left it glowing. When she did stretch and blink and lay her bow down hours later, Sophie would feel tougher and braver. It was, she thought, like having eaten a meal of cream and moonshine.
Sophie had worked out that good and bad days divided half and half. It was worth it.
Nobody bothered her up on the rooftop. It was flat grey slate, with stone balustrade running round the edge. The balustrade came up to Sophie's chin. People below looking up could see only a shock of bright hair and a bowing elbow.